Okay.
All right. So, hey man, so why don't you take a minute to kind of introduce yourself to our group here and just tell them
Absolutely.
what you're about.
Okay, great. Tim, thanks for having me, speak to the group. My name is Steven.Mcgilbray. I'm with a company called Guaranteed Rate. We're a top five national lender. I've been a mortgage lender for well over 20 years. I've owned my own brokerage, but decided to go in a different direction and join, an outfit that was more of a direct lender. But I'm a native Houstonian and, love helping people become homeowners.
Oh, okay. So I would my biggest pressing question at this point is, there are so many realtors out there. There are so many lenders out there, different title companies. How does one choose a good lender? How do you know if a lender is good or not?
Generally speaking, the best resource is, of course, going to always be your real estate agent because, they have relationship with, lenders and title companies and other vendors that help throughout the process of owning a home. That's key. And then from a friend or family member, someone you may work with, someone that's already purchased a home that had a positive experience, that's always also a good choice, to kind of find out and help selecting a lender, at least have someone to add to the mix as far as options are concerned. And it's totally okay for consumers to have, two, three, four lenders to consult with, because at the end of the day, you have to work with somebody that fits your specific, um, I guess you would say, needs or, that you get along with, because that's very important. You want to work with someone that you like.
Yeah, for sure. I know that vibe. Having a good vibe with my clients, it's really important for me and it's really important for them too.
Yes.
I could be the smartest agent in the world, but if I'm not talking their talk, then
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a good fit for them, and
There's a disconnect.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's definitely some personality issues that come into play.
Yeah.
Um, Now, what you said about having maybe 3 to 5 different lenders that you're talking to, that's kind of interesting to me. So when you go, I guess what you're saying is when you have a borrower that is trying to pick from a lender, beyond personality and I guess beyond rate, what would you say helps a lender stand apart?
Um, Really just being, transparent and listening to the client's needs, and making sure you're addressing those needs. You can talk to three or four different people, five different lenders, and they're all going to have, a different conversation or approach. Some are going to be hardcore, just trying to get you to buy, and lock in at that particular point.
Yeah.
I take the approach of just being laid back and just kind of listening to the client's needs and what their goal is for financing their home, and just try to give them all of my attention to what they're trying to accomplish.
Mhm. And can you think of an example, maybe recently or one of your favorite examples, I guess, of when you might have gone up to a borrower against a different lender and you ended up getting the business? Can you tell me, I guess, a war story where you came out successful with that?
Yeah, I can actually tell you one that happened recently. It was on a refinance with a veteran. Guaranteed Rate waives all lender fees on our veterans. So whether it's a refinance or a purchase, this particular gentleman had received an interest rate quote from another lender. And we kind of just went around talking about the differences. And I always tell people to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Just because it seems like it's the better deal doesn't necessarily mean it's the best deal. And even though, someone may offer, a slightly lower rate, what do you get with that? Are you going to get the service? Are you going to get the things that you really need? Is that person going to pick up the phone, or are you just going to be passed off to somebody else? In this particular situation, the client mentioned that they were at, on a VA Earl refinance loan, they were at 2.25%. I said, well, I can get to that rate, I'm without any points, I'm at 2.375. But then we kind of circle back and he says, okay, well, he has these points associated with this origination. I said, well, that's the difference right there. I can easily make that up because we don't have any lender fees. So when you look at that and you come, because he prefers actually prefer to deal with someone local, right?
Sure.
Instead of an online lender.
Yes.
Sometimes because of the internet, people go online and look at these lowly advertised rates,
Yeah.
and it may be just a call center where you're just a number to those folks. But this gentleman really wanted to deal with somebody locally that if he wanted to come to the office or wanted to have an in-person meeting, he can do that.
Yeah, it's happened to me several times personally where I've had a client that might have gone online and found a lender, picked out a lender, and came to me and said, "Hey, Tim, I've already been qualified, and I have this approval letter." And I said, "Well, just so you know, there's a big difference when you're working with, let's say, an online lender out of California versus someone that's going to be more local that knows the local laws and how
Yep.
things are done here." And I'll try to work with anybody to make it work,
Sure.
in general, as a general rule, right?
Yes.
But what I've seen over and over is a lot of sellers or the sellers' agents have instructed the sellers, "Hey, you don't want to accept that offer because you don't want to have to deal with some out-of-state lender or a lender that isn't going to be, let's say, very communicative, you know."
Yep.
So I've seen that quite a few times on my end where we've actually put in the offer with that approval letter, and they say, "Oh, well, we like the offer, but if you want this to get accepted, you're going to have to go get a lender that's local because we don't want to deal with
Yeah.
it. We don't
Yeah.
want to deal with this, and honestly, we don't trust this." I have, the listing agent might tell me like, "Oh, I have 3 other lenders I can recommend to you, but please don't use this one."
Yeah.
And for me, I would back up and say, "Well, no, I've got other local lenders. It's just that the client really wanted to go with this one,
This
right?"
particular lender. Yeah.
So, and I think that that has actually kind of helped me out a couple of times where the listing agent came along and said that. So now I
Yeah.
don't have to be the bearer of bad news to say, "Hey, man, I know we talked about this at the beginning, but can you just go talk to this guy over here and see if you can get an approval letter to see if we can get this deal approved or not." Right?
Yeah, I mean that means a lot. Just like having that local presence. A lot of times if you're working with an out-of-state lender, they have appraisers that, of course, they know the market, but we have appraisal panels that we specifically, have as part of our group of appraisers that can get things done a lot quicker than some of these other folks. So
Sure.
it just makes a lot. And then personally, before COVID-19, I would go to all of my closings. That's
Okay.
another important piece. So, as an example, if you're in a closing and just anything that might need to be changed, or there was something that the escrow officer had questions about, and there's not a loan officer there that can answer the question, or a loan officer there that, because I take my laptop with me,
Yeah.
that can shoot off an email to the closer
Right.
and get something resolved
Right.
instead of them having to get on the phone and chase somebody down.
Right.
That's a huge difference,
Yeah.
in being able to be local and also be able to attend your closings.
For sure. And sometimes you try to call one of those companies and you can't even get anybody on the phone.
You get a switchboard
Yeah. Yeah.
and they have no clue where to direct you to.
Yeah. 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 So, what are you seeing with the local market changes in Houston right now? What's your take on that?
Well, you know, I see that there's a lot of multiple offers going on. You would think, and what part of the conversation is, a lot of people, like some of the things you hear on the news is, with all this time people are in close confines with COVID-19, they're finding out that they really prefer to have more space.
Yeah.
And you're getting a lot of multiple offers on homes right now. I've had people that, are shopping for homes and offered, well over listing price,
Yeah.
and they're losing out on those. So
Sure.
that's another key thing about having, a local lender, a lender that's, available, Saturday, Sunday evenings when you want to get your offer in because you saw the house on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or evening, and you want to get that offer over. You want to have it there that same night. So those are some of the things that I think, it seems to be more of a, I guess, seller's market right now.
Sure.
And that is causing, a lot of stress for some people.
Oh yeah. Particularly when they've gone in and tried to themselves have tried to put together an offer on 1, 2, or 3 properties, and they've lost out on all of them because maybe they didn't offer high enough,
Exactly.
or maybe they didn't get the offer turned in fast enough. You know,
Exactly.
and I can really say this just for my own end of it, how critical it is. If you go look at a house today and the client loves it, we got to get an offer right away,
Right away.
because we don't know what's going to happen in the next hour, in the next 24 hours. But it might be, a lot of buyers are running around over the weekend looking at homes, putting in the offers and getting them accepted. And
Exactly.
if you're there, if you're the buyer and you're sitting on your thumbs, I want to think about it. That's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, good luck, because I don't know what to tell you. All I can do is try to tell the buyer that, to the best of my ability, that there's no way to tell whether this will be on the market in 3 hours from now or 12 hours from now or whatever. And
Exactly.
I think my record was on one particular house, we got it sold in 1 hour, in like
Wow.
less than
That's
contract
insane.
accepted after going online, less than an hour. Okay.
Wow.
And the market's been like that for quite a while, since I've been working in real estate in Houston. With all the people moving here, sure, we've had some slowdowns here and there, but the speed or the demand from buyers, the market really hasn't slowed
It's
down.
strong.
I've been living
Yeah.
here. I've been living here now for 12 years. Okay.
Okay.
So I was originally a transplant from Louisiana,
Okay.
and I escaped.
Yep.
And no, I've been living here ever since, and love living here. But one thing that I've noticed since I've moved here is the city just keeps getting bigger and, and bigger, and people continue to
No,
move.
no slowdown. The nice thing about Houston is that, it's not just an oil and gas,
Right.
city or town.
Yeah.
You've got the world famous medical center that, there's thousands of jobs that are created out of there, and just, general industry here. So we don't see the market fluctuations as much as some places, like a Florida as an example, when they had the condo, basically explosion, or
Right.
California, where people were over speculating on homes, and that just drove the market crazy.
Yeah.
But Houston, by and large, there's talk that pretty soon in the coming years, Houston will be the third largest city in the country, surpassing Chicago.
Hmm.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's just getting bigger. So I have personally seen that in our business. Our office is in League City,
Yep.
and I live in Pearland. So
Okay.
from the Pearland angle, I work with a lot of clients that might be in the medical industry. We just closed on one a couple of weeks ago. She moved to Manville, which is right next to Pearland,
Yep.
to be able to commute up and down 288 to the medical
Straight shot.
nurse. Exactly.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
see a lot of medical personnel living in Pearland and in the Manville area. And then with our office in League City, we're pretty close to NASA too. So
Yeah.
that's a big boom for the local economy as well. Just
Absolutely.
continuing to pull in people from other states or other cities, and the sky's the limit here, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you work with a lot of first-time home buyers, right?
Absolutely. Recent college graduates, non-college graduates, first-time home buyers. We, offer the down payment assistant programs because, it's not, I think there's a lot of misconception about the down payment assistant program. Oftentimes it's just used for low to moderate income,
Okay.
but you have people that, not only have great credit profiles, but make really good income,
Okay.
that fall within the parameters that would allow them to take advantage of a down payment assistance program for first-time home buyers. So those are programs that work really well in helping people to get in homes sooner rather than later,
Okay.
because you can get that 3 to 5% down payment help on the front end, or you can use some of it for the back end to assist you with that.
Okay. And just for the people that don't know, what exactly is a down payment assistance program?
Absolutely. So the down payment assistance program, generally, there's two parts of what I call the real estate transaction. There's the down payment and there's the closing costs. Well, your skin in the game as a consumer is going to be the down payment. And, oftentimes it also includes the closing costs. Sometimes people are in position to, they have, let's call it, couple of $1,000s in savings that they can afford to put down either on the front end for the down payment or on the back end for closing costs.
Okay.
Well, what the down payment assistance programs are meant to do is offset that and help them, on either the front or back end of it. So, typically, you might look at, prior to COVID-19, we used to do conventional loans down to 3%. That, of course, has gone away, but you still have the FHA at 3.5%, which is a perfect product because you can do a conventional down payment assistance program and you can do an FHA down payment assistance program. So if you're taking that total of 5%, you can allocate 3.5% to the front part of it, which is your skin in the game for the FHA piece, and then whatever's left over, you can use that in conjunction to any savings that you may have on hand to help with the closing costs. So that is what it's useful for.
Yeah. So I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
How often now are you seeing people come with little to no money down or out of pocket at closing?
Very often. Now, and the reason being is because they are taking advantage of the down payment system program where they're getting that money on the front end. If they can negotiate it, it's not always the case, but if they can negotiate it and the sellers are agreeable to helping them with some seller contribution, they can use that to come to the table with as little money out of pocket. Now, if it's, they're going to have their, typical 1%. Once the, contractors agreed upon, there's generally a 1% requirement of the sales price to be held in escrow. Now on VA loans with 100% financing, if they can get that money back. So if they're putting down on a $200,000 home, they're putting $2,000 earnest money up, and they've gotten enough in seller contributions, they can actually walk away with cash, at least the minimum of the money that they put down on earnest money.
Sure. So I've actually seen my partner has had clients that have gotten checks at closing.
Yep.
And personally, what I've dealt with is I've had buyers that show up with 0 to closing.
Yep.
And I had one buyer that showed up with a check for $40 to closing. So that's $40 to buy a house. I mean, it
does not get better than that. And those programs are available. It just takes some time to sit down with an individual, consult them, and find out, if they qualify for these programs, and then get them approved.
Is there a way or a ballpark of a person, or like a caricature or an avatar of a person, to say my life, my credit, my stuff fits this program, I should definitely talk to you and apply for? Like, is there a certain type of individual where, oh, this is very common, you would definitely recommend them to check out the down payment assistance program?
I wouldn't say it's a particular type of individual. I mean, there's so many different, Houston is such a diverse city from the standpoint of jobs, income, background.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, if, the program works for their needs and they have the credit score to be able to get the program, then that program works across the board for anybody. The only time that you really run into problems is if their income is too high. Sometimes people are trying to qualify for down payment assistance programs, and generally speaking, you want to be at $90,000 in income or less for a household, and then that way you can definitely take advantage of that down payment assistance program.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you say that, because just personally, I've seen several different types of clients get that program and be able to take advantage of it, and it's
Absolutely.
Program.
Absolutely.
Okay. So would you say right now, are you mostly working with first-time home buyers, or let's say repeat offenders, or VA, or what's your bread and butter?
I do a little bit of everything, because we offer so many different products. I have all types of clients, whether it's first-time home buyer, where it's a move-up buyer, whether it's a buyer buying a second home. I've got a client that I've done about 3 or 4 loans with now, that he's buying a townhome in South Padre Island. Okay. So it just runs the gamut of different things that I kind of see out there. Anything that's related to residential mortgage loans, whether it's a refinance, purchase, cash out, I do it. So like I said, I see a little bit of everything, but my primary focus has been always the purchase business. And I do the refinance, of course, in times like now where the interest rates at historical lows. You definitely have clients that'll circle back to you that want to get those loans. But down payment assistance program, I've got a couple of VA loans in process right now, and then I've got some where people are putting down 20%. So
Okay.
it runs many different gamuts. A lot of people think that you have to have 20% down to purchase a home,
Right.
and that's not true.
Yeah.
So a little bit of everything.
Okay. Okay. And I know you had kind of said at the start that you've been doing this for quite a while,
20 plus years.
20 plus years. So
Yeah.
tell me a story about a great, let's say like a great success where maybe you didn't think you were going to be able to get a buyer qualified, or and things just kind of magically work themselves out. Anything particular stand out for you like that?
Um, you know, I can't. Let me think about it. Something that kind of worked out a little bit better than I may have thought. Oh, well, it's probably it's kind of a crazy one, and when I say that, I had this client that I was working with. Now this was a big loan amount, right? It was like $1.8 million, list price, right?
Wow.
And the appraiser came back and hit at the property at 1.5 million, which, you're thinking this agent, wouldn't dare list a house for, so far of a difference in what they thought it could sell for.
Sure.
Well, we do what's called a reconsideration of value as an example. And these folks were just moving back from Europe and they were ready to get into their home. And this was kind of holding things up. So we do the reconsideration of value. And that appraiser was adamant. He stuck to his guns on that value.
Yeah.
And we were able to finally get a concession where we could get two more appraisers to kind of go in and give their perspective on it. And then what we ended up doing is using that middle value.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it saved the client over $150,000. So it was a kind of an extreme case. It's not your everyday typical
Sure.
thing,
Yeah.
but the idea that he was able to, it actually ended up benefiting him, and he got the home for less than what it originally was listed for. And we were able to get it closed. So that one, that was probably one of the ones that really kind of struck me as odd, that stood out, because again, there was such a disparity in the amount of value that they were coming up with.
Awesome.
Now that's not an everyday person though. That's not, your normal person. That was just a kind of an interesting case.
Sure. Well, I don't know that many. I know they're out there, but I don't know of that many $1.5 million buyers running around. Anyway,
Yeah.
Our bread and butter out of League City, Pearland, Dickinson, Pima. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of luxury real estate around here.
Yep.
But I would say our team typically works with buyers in, let's say, the 200 to 400 range. It seems like there's a lot of
that's pretty much the standard. And to be honest with you, it seems like it's getting harder to find homes under 200K. When I have someone that tells me they want to get approved, and they want maybe like a $1,200 a month payment, all in, I'm like, yeah, we can do it, and I'm glad to get you approved for it.
Sure.
But it just seems like it's going to be some challenges trying to find something like that.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of what I honestly see, Tim. Probably those price points to 200 to 400K. Those are more in line with what I see on a regular basis, as opposed to that one-off. But it just kind of, like I said, it was just a crazy way that kind of came together.
Sure. Yeah. So on that note, can you talk a little bit about why it's better, in your opinion, to buy a home or own a home versus renting?
Or you're throwing away a lot of money and you don't get the tax write-off. You're paying for somebody else to, real estate is in my opinion, the easiest way to build wealth. You don't have to start off with a ton of money. There's different things that you can do. The down payment assistance programs, if you use those to your benefit, you're creating wealth by being able to purchase that first home and then continue to pay that down. And then if you want to move along in a few years, you're able to lease that home out and then step up to the next one. But, generally speaking, I think, that's how I look at it.
Sure. Sure. I guess the other reason that I asked that is, most of the time I deal with like a lot of renters that are moving into homes. So I would say most of the people that I know either already own a home or are trying to move into a home, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious in this day and age why certain people would even consider, oh, renting is a better choice. I can only really think of one, maybe. I need a 1 year lease because I expect that I will be moving out of state or moving away from here completely. But it's hard for me to
Well,
imagine why else somebody would want to rent.
that's true, but I think a lot of times is again, people aren't aware of the different options there are
Okay,
for home ownership.
sure.
You know, some people, have reservations and don't even think they can afford a home. But, if you're paying $1,400, $1,500 a month for an apartment, these apartments are going up. They're not getting cheaper. Even though you're getting all these people coming in, you see all this construction of these really, really nice apartment
Yeah,
complexes,
yeah,
those rents aren't cheap.
yeah.
So if you can afford to do that, or if you just, set a plan in place and be diligent about, want to purchase a home and working with the right people to help you, you can absolutely own a home for the same price that you're paying for that apartment that you're in.
And that's really interesting. So I'm sure you've noticed if you're driving around Houston, there's tons and tons of new construction. But
Everywhere.
but as much new construction is being developed, there's still more people moving in looking for a place to live than there are new builds going up, right? So
Exactly.
it's got to eventually it's got to press those rents to the point of, hey, I got to own something, because why am I
Got
going
to
to
own
give my
something.
money to a landlord that, there's just no future with that, right?
None whatsoever. I mean, a long time ago, I had taken this class and just kind of finding out more about real estate as I was thinking about a career choice. And the instructor was basically saying what the cost of an average apartment was as far as the build out.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was years ago. I mean, I don't want to tell my age. I mean, I got all this gray, but it was somewhere maybe around $8,500 for that unit, right?
Mhm.
Where if somebody's paying $800 a month, they basically pay for that unit in a year's time frame. But people are living in these apartments for 3, 4, and 5 years.
Yeah.
Again, it's just the idea that they're not aware of the different programs and that they can actually own a home for that same price point. If that's where they're comfortable at monthly payment wise, there's something out there for you.
Right. Right. I think probably one of the only other reasons that people what would you say is another reason that people continue to rent right now?
Credit,
Credit. My credit,
credit.
I think my credit sucks and I'll never be able to buy a house. What do you say to those people, and how much credit does somebody need to get into a house?
Well, a lot of times, I'll have people that come to me and they might, say, hey, well, listen, I've got my credit scores from, Credit Karma or TransUnion or Equifax.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm going to do when I hear that is going to throw up a red flag to me, telling me what you really need to do is run your credit with a lender.
Okay.
You need to either go to your bank or someone that's been referred to you. And you actually need to go through the process of completing an application to see where you truly are, because the credit reports that a lender pulls is very different from what a Credit Karma, as an example, or a TransUnion will get. Several years ago, Experian, as an example, had a $3 million lawsuit against them because they were telling consumers that this credit that they pulled with them was the same as what lenders pull. And I've seen those credit scores tend to be off by as much as 125 points.
Yeah.
That's huge when somebody's coming at you telling you, I got a 750 credit, I'm sorry, 650 credit score. In reality, is 525. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's very important for people to really just find out where they are, so that if they are in a situation where they're not eligible for approval right now,
Mhm.
we put them on a program or a path to where we, send them a couple of different names, just kind of like the mortgage guy, right? Or the real estate agent. You
Sure.
want them to have, options to
Yeah.
find somebody that suits their needs as far as building rapport with them that they can feel like they can get along with.
Yeah.
So what you do is you get them involved with somebody that can, consult, give them a consultation, tell them how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, and then put them on the path to getting their scores where they need to go. But you really need to pull your credit scores with a lender so that you actually know what your true scores are.
Okay, so I've actually seen it several times where where a prospective buyer will say, "Well, I don't even want to pull my credit because I think it's so low. I just need to go into credit repair." What would you tell them for something like that if that's what they're thinking?
Again, you can maybe use a service like, myfico.com. You can certainly try with the annual free credit report or even the TransUnion, but you want to see all three scores because lenders are going to use the lowest middle credit score of all three scores to determine your eligibility for interest rate and for loan programs. So, you can start off that way, but again, my concern about that is if you're getting that information from these different resources, if in time when you come and you are ready to get a loan and you get approval, then it not work out for you. I mean, but you have a lot of information out there and you're welcome to it. But I would just say you want to make sure that that score is over 700 if you're going to use those resources that aren't a lender.
Right, because like you were saying earlier, they could be completely wrong.
Absolutely.
And
Even stuff like you get like credit card companies, they monitor your credit scores,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But again, it's not the same as what you get when you go with a lender. And we're pulling the same, bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian,
sure.
but for whatever reason, those scores aren't the same.
Right. Well, I think the other part to that conversation is that lenders are looking for particular things about a prospective buyer. And those particular things don't necessarily line up with the way that a bank would grade you or a car salesperson
Dealership.
grade you,
Exactly.
grade you. So you're looking through it through your mortgage lending filter, and
Yep.
it could be something completely different than what they were themselves expecting. There's a huge disconnect there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that I'll point out that, I tell people as well, is that it is absolutely okay to pull your credit when you're in the mode of wanting to get approved for a loan and you may have two or three options that you're really strongly considering: your current bank, someone that your real estate agent referred you to, and then someone that a close friend or family member. Fine. If you want to pull your credit with all three lenders within a 10-day window, it's not going to impact your credit scores.
Okay.
Your credit scores will be the same across the board. Now, if you went off and you start going to car dealerships and shopping for a new car, then that's going to significantly impact your credit scores. But it's not the same when you're shopping for a mortgage because the bureaus recognize the difference. You're shopping for, the best terms for yourself.
Right.
So they allow you a little bit more flexibility when it comes to credit scores that way.
Now, I heard you say a minute ago, a 10-day window. Is that kind of a rule of thumb for you, or?
I can go from 10 to 15 days. I think that's probably a good time frame. I think if somebody is serious and they're wanting to get loan approval, you should focus on getting it knocked out. You can take, an afternoon and talk to a couple of lenders, take an evening. Like for me personally, someone can just go directly to my webpage and create fill out a secure online application and download a copy of their scores right there on the spot. So, that's simple to do if you're serious about getting it done.
Okay. And do you have a hyperlink that you could share with us real quick? What's your website?
Yeah, well, maybe not here, but I can tell I made it easy for consumers to find me at www.houston, like our city, rate.com, www.houstonrate.com. That's the easiest way to find me.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll make sure that we put that in the description when we
cool.
post the video. Okay. Yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking some time with us to share,
Absolutely.
drop some knowledge.
Absolutely.
I know we kind of covered a lot in a short period of time. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover that I forgot? Because we're
yes. One of the things, or a couple of things, I would always suggest when people are looking to purchase a home, probably the two or three biggest questions that I get is, how much is it going to cost me, right? How much money am I going to have to put down? And what is my monthly payment?
Okay.
The first consultation that I have with a consumer, I'm going to ask them, have you, or along with your significant other, if you're married, have you considered what your comfortability is for mortgage payment on a monthly basis. What are you paying now?
Yep.
How far, if you're paying $1,300 a month now for rent,
Yep.
is that something where you feel comfortable, or are you thinking you want to go a little bit higher? So, and once I find out that, then I kind of help them back into the purchase price of where their needs are going to be met and where they're going to have a payment that they can be comfortable with. So that is probably, a couple of the two or three biggest things that, I hear, and I think that people should address, up front, is really, really consider what you're comfortable paying on a monthly basis, because most folks are doing 30-year mortgages,
Yep.
and that 30-year mortgage is coming at you every month.
Sure.
So you want to make sure you're prepared and don't overextend yourself.
Sure. And I've heard it from buyers in the field 1,000 times where they've said to me, oh, I think I can afford, $2,500 a month, but just because I can afford it doesn't mean I want to spend it. I'm
Absolutely not.
still looking to stay in that $2,000 a month or $1,600 a month range, so that I feel comfortable. I don't care if I can afford it. I want to feel comfortable that I can make
Exactly.
payments, and not have to stress about it, right?
Exactly. Last thing you want to do is just be focused month in, month out of paying a mortgage and not have a life outside of working and paying for your mortgage.
Sure.
You still want to be able to live. You still want to be able to spend time with family. You still want to be able to, go places on trips with your family, that sort of thing. So you really have to take those things into consideration, because last thing you want to do is be upset about the decision you've made of purchasing this home and now you can't afford it. So those are key things. Some lenders will, try to max people out on what they can afford.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I try to find out, upfront, when you have somebody, as an example, that's paying, whatever the amount is, and then they're trying to jump up significantly,
Yeah.
unless it's just something that they've been prepared for, or, job change, job offer, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
then you really have to, slow them down. You want to, do what they're asking you to do, but at the same time, you also want to educate them so that they know you have to really be prepared for this.
Right. Right. And I'm not really sure about the nuances of your industry, but for us, we have what we call a fiduciary responsibility to the client to advise them in the best way that we know how. Right. So it's about putting the client's interests before our own. So just because they can afford a bigger house doesn't mean that Tim should try to stick them into a bigger house. Let's find the best house that you're going to feel comfortable with, and then go from there and make sure that we're staying.
Exactly. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. You don't want to find out, a couple of 2 or 3 years later that something, happened where they had to get out of the home for whatever reason, and you didn't do your job in educating them up front. Right. And it happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's funny that you say that, because I was actually in the field today with some buyers, and I was having almost that exact same conversation. Hey, my biggest goal in life, as far as you're concerned, is to make sure that you're not going to change your mind in 6 months after you already own the house and say, why did I let Tim talk me into this? I wish that I'd gone for something else. So let's have those harder conversations up front while we're at the house, and make sure that it's going to be a really great fit for the buyer, and that they're going to love living there a long time. So I can definitely see where you're coming from.
100% agree, Tim. 100% agree, man.
Yeah. Awesome. One more thing before I let you go. We talk about a lot in our office the high cost of waiting to buy in Houston, and it kind of ties back to what you were saying earlier about tenants making the decision to stop renting and start owning. Right.
Yep.
And one thing that I've seen over the last couple of years, is the appreciation rates in Houston, because of the people that are moving here. The prices just keep jumping, and you were talking about rents going up earlier.
Yep.
So I guess it behooves us to chat about that real quick. But one of the things that I like to talk about when a buyer is kind of on the fence about, should I continue to rent, or when is the best time to buy a home? My answer in general is now. If you don't already own a home, you want to try to get into a home now, because the same house 6 months later, it could be $10,000, it could be $20,000, it could be $30,000 more, right? Like we're seeing.
No doubt. think about this, new construction. One of my very best friends, works for a builder, and he's telling me now that the cost of lumber is going up. So when those folks are going in and look at the house, 1 week, they go back a week and a half later, the price has increased $8,000.
Yes.
So those are other things that you have to consider.
Yes.
It's just a crazy time right now. And again, with historically low interest rates, there isn't a better time because, a year ago, you were looking at rates at 4.6, 4.75.
Sure.
Now you're getting 30-year fixed for 2.875, 2.625, so there's a huge difference, in payment in what you can afford. So you definitely want to take that into consideration and look at your options, sit down with somebody like a Tim, like myself, and get the consultation you need to see what your options are, to see if you are, can make a move now instead of waiting, because, no one knows how much longer these interest rates are going to be this way.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically speaking, they're the lowest of my lifetime that I can remember, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know how long that's going to last. And the other piece is, who knows what that house is going to cost in 6 months or a year from now, right? So
exactly.
Nobody has a crystal ball. All we can say is, hey, the conditions right now are ideal. See if you can take advantage of these low rates and get you into your dream home, right? So
start having the conversation, start taking it serious, start getting educated and asking the questions, and seeing if there's an opportunity for you to do it now.
Fantastic, man. Well, again, I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me to
Absolutely.
go through this stuff, and
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be in touch. Thanks so much, Steve.
Sounds good. Good night.
All right, bye.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.